It's Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. This is a Prescott City Council voting session. And welcome, everyone. It's good to see a somewhat full chambers. It's good to see people out and about, so thanks for coming out and being here today. Before we go to announcements, I wanted to talk a little bit about a firefighter that we lost last week. On Wednesday, I got word that we had lost Prescott firefighter EMT Ty Seats. And, these are always hard, very difficult to face. Ty was actually someone that I coached in Little League. I was there for his badge pinning with him and Johnny Winter, both of whom I'd coached and saw grow up here in the community. So these are hard ones when they're your own like that, when they grow up here and they serve locally. And so it's been a difficult week for many of us here in the city, particularly for the Seats family. And I would ask that we remember the Seats family and lift them up in prayer. And our fire department and first responders have done a tremendous job wrapping around services and support to the family during this time. And I'd ask Chief Light to just give us a quick brief on how things are going and the service that's coming up here this weekend.
Mayor, members, council, member of the public. It's been a trying 7 days, to say the least. Right at the moment, we're still honoring our fallen with a memorial service that will take place this Saturday at 10 a.m. at the Prescott, the Heights Church here in Prescott. With that, further information will be coming out as it becomes available. The planning efforts, right at the moment, what we've strived as an organization and the greater Quad City area is to respect the wishes of Carissa and her two children, as well as the extended Seats family. The men and women of the Prescott Fire Department are very thankful for everybody's prayers and blessings that have been offered to us, both in person, electronically, and by snail mail. With that, we are resilient. We regretfully had to cross a similar path not many years ago. And with that, I assure you that we will continue to negotiate some mountainous terrain over the coming weeks, days, and months. But with that, please take a moment to honor our late firefighter, Ty Seats. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Thanks for your leadership. I appreciate all that you've done for the department and the family. Let's all stand, and we're going to take a moment of silence for Ty Seats. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, announcements today?
No announcements. I did want to welcome County Supervisor and former Prescott Mayor Harry Oberg. It's nice to see your friendly face in the audience. Other than that, just nice to see some folks here in person with us.
All right, thank you for that. Today we have an invocation by Reverend Chris Christie with St. Luke's Episcopal Church, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Sischka. And we don't have a pastor in the house again. All right. Well, we will rise and have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, let's please call roll.
Mayor Mangarelli.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Scholl.
Here.
Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
Here.
Councilmember Rusing.
Here.
Councilman Sischka.
Here.
And Councilman Tenney.
Here.
All are present.
All right, thank you. Let's go to proclamations.
National Vietnam War Veterans Day, March 29th.
It's my honor to present this proclamation today. And before I read it, I would like some of my Vietnam veteran brothers to step forward. Tony Shaw, please. Harry Oberg. And Steve Wappershaw. I wanted to recognize particularly Tony. Tony being a fellow Rotarian and also the original keynote speaker at the dedication of the All Veterans Memorial, Courthouse Plaza, back in 1989. Correct? And I also want to acknowledge the fact that Tony and some of the other veterans who worked on that plaque allowed me the privilege of rededicating that plaque back in 2016, where we added quite a few additional veterans who lost their lives serving our country, who were Yavapai County veterans, and we've updated that plaque for veterans who were born or raised in Yavapai County and lost their lives serving our country. So with that, Tony's Army veteran with an armored unit in Armored Cavalry. Harry Oberg, as most people know, helicopter pilot, served 2 tours, not only with the 1st Cav, but with the 101st Airborne when I was in country as well. Although I waved to him many times as he flew over, he never picked me up. And Steve Wappershaw, a good friend of mine who's had a lot of combat experience as a medic in Vietnam. So this particular proclamation is quite important to me as well. So to read that, Proclamation, National Vietnam War Veterans Day. Whereas by act of Congress signed into law by President Donald J. Trump on March 28, 2017, the first federal statute to specifically honor Vietnam veterans created the National Vietnam War Veterans Day to be observed on March 29th of each year. And whereas on March 29, 1973, the last American combat troops withdrew from South Vietnam after more than 9 million men and women served in the U.S. military services during the Vietnam War era. And whereas 58,724 men and women died serving during the Vietnam War. And whereas, due to the divisive nature of the Vietnam War, a few returning veterans were properly welcomed home and honored for their service and sacrifice to the founding ideals of our nation. And whereas the city of Prescott prides itself in valuing its many military veteran residents, and whereas it is only right and proper that the city of Prescott and its residents recognize and honor all of its Vietnam War veterans for their service and sacrifice. Now, therefore, Greg Mengarelli, Mayor of the City of Prescott, on behalf of the Prescott City Council, does hereby encourage all citizens to display the flag of the United States, to honor Vietnam War veterans, and does hereby acknowledge March 29, 2021 as National Vietnam War Veterans Day. So would you please turn around and the audience welcome home these veterans. And Tony, it's my honor to present this proclamation to you and to the welcome home. All welcome home.
Thank you, Councilman Good. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service, gentlemen. All right, let's move on to the next proclamation.
National Service Recognition Day, April 6th.
Is there anyone here to accept this proclamation? You guys can come on up. Thank you for being here this afternoon. Proclamation, National Service Recognition Day. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges. And whereas the nation's cities, towns, and counties are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet their needs. And whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants address the most pressing challenges facing our communities, from educating students for the jobs of the 21st century, to fighting the pandemic, to responding to natural disasters, to supporting veterans and military families. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. And whereas AmeriCorps participants serve in more than 45,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. Whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve, both through their direct service and by managing millions of additional volunteers. And whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them for their future endeavors. And whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with local leaders nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, the National Association of Counties, Cities of Service, and local leaders across the country for National Service Recognition Day on April 6th, 2021. Now therefore, Greg L. Mingarelli, Mayor of Prescott, Arizona, does hereby proclaim April 6th, 2020 as National Service Recognition Day, and encourages residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our community, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to their communities. Did you want to say a few words about you?
The name says it all. The upcoming National Service Recognition Day is an event where we're going to recognize and highlight the work of our national service members. In the city of Prescott, in particular, it is our honor to highlight the impact of AmeriCorps, AmeriCorps Vista, and other national service projects which are tackling our local challenges. We want to thank our national service members in particular for their commitment and service to Yavapai County, and we also want to recognize the remarkable alums who have gone before us and who still shape our community today. Currently, Arizona Serve supports over 50 AmeriCorps state and Vista members throughout our area, a number that has almost doubled over this last year, even despite the global pandemic. Each serves on a specific poverty relief project of their choosing with a local organization. The Community Nature Center, Prevent Child Abuse Arizona, United Way, Boys to Men Mentoring Network, The Launchpad, the Prescott Unified School District, Yavapai County Community Health Services, GEM Environmental, People Who Care, and Yavapai Casa for Kids Foundation are just some of the many organizations who work with us to make our community a better place to be. So, we want to thank them once again, and we want to thank you, our community, and its leaders for this tremendous honor and for supporting our national service members. Thank you.
And AmeriCorps gave you and the council members some swag, so yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Would any member like to pull any items from the consent agenda at this time?
Yes, I would, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I would like to pull item 7E and 7H. They're related.
So I would like to discuss them
Okay.
together.
You said E and H.
E and H.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I
Mayor,
move we approve items 7A through 7I, accepting 7E and H.
second.
We have a motion and second. So please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right. Let's look at item E. Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could maybe have a discussion about this upcoming capital improvement project involving it's probably expansion of our water infrastructure to Zone 12 and Zone 11. Is there anyone here that can? Oh, thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Craig Dotseth, Public Works. Councilmember Rusing, do you have a specific question on the item, or?
Oh, I had emailed you earlier. You didn't get the emails about me pulling this?
I knew you were going to pull it, but
Oh, okay.
okay, I was expecting.
Well, I was just wondering if you could describe a little more about what this capital improvement project
Okay.
involves, and you're adding another $200,000 to the request for materials.
Correct. Okay.
Thank you.
So this piece, the Zone 12 and Zone 110 pipeline project, is part of the bigger project, the intermediate pump station. So we currently have the Chino booster facility under construction, which sends the water from Chino in, and then the intermediate is the next large piece of that major project. Now, as part of the intermediate pump station, then we have these off-site pipelines. The reason that we actually have the pipelines out to bid right now, separately from the total project, all because of timing. So they're part of the entire project, but in regards to timing of us being able to move water and serve new customers out there, we need to perform this piece of the project sooner than the entire project length will take, as well as with the lead time that we're finding for large materials. With all of our projects, there's very long lead times now. So it's out of the ordinary, but we as Public Works went out as part of our materials securing contracts that we have in place with the material suppliers, got quotes for the materials needed for this project because of timing. So that's why we're asking for this $200,000 increase to our existing contract, is to pre-purchase these materials that will be utilized by the contractor to install these two sections of pipeline, which will ultimately be part of the entire intermediate project. And the customer that we also our timing, we would have had this out to bid earlier, but it all hinged on us securing our legal easements in order to be able to build these pipelines. And we were working with state land and others on those. So once we secured the easements, then we were able to go forward with the design. So this is a matter of getting everything done to meet the timing needs. And that primary customer that will be the first customer on this is the Trinity School.
Okay. And then that's the Zone 12?
That will be Zone 110. We'll be feeding them.
Okay.
Zone 12 moves the water the other direction.
Oh, so that will be in the Chino, our customers in Chino?
No, the Zone 12 is the entire airport area.
Okay, thank you.
Now 110 then is the next higher area in, because as topography changes, then we have to have higher pressures again.
Okay, thank you. And then moving on to 7H, the Westwood subdivision, the two
We need to vote on E first.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, I move to approve item 7E.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any other discussion on item E? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right. Now let's move on to item H. Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you.
Do you have a question or?
Yes, I I had a question. I was looking at the plat that was furnished, and there's two mains. There's a gas main and a water main transversing the plat, and it said in fine print that these were going to be relocated. And I was just wondering if we had some details about what's planning, because it's adjacent to state land, and it seems to me that would be a pretty major job to relocate the water main and the gas main, and if that was going to when that was going to occur and how it was going to affect the plat, because it seems to me the plat would have to be redone.
Okay, again, Mayor, Council, Craig Dossett, Public Works. So this is a copy of the plat that was supplied or as part of the project. The easements that we are, and let's, okay.
Around 60.
Okay, so this is an existing water easement here, and then comes down across like this, and then this is the gas easement, and again, then it joins in. So I can answer on the water side. So this pipeline goes back 50 plus years when there was just about nothing out there. That was the primary feed for the airport area for many years and years and years. We have already abandoned that water line back to just to the west side of State Route 89. That no longer feeds in there. Currently, it comes up and it's still feeding, I believe it's the Lifeline ambulance facility that's right along State Route 89. So there's a meter on it, on the end of it there. There used to be a cow tank in there as well. That has recently gone away with the road project and such. But in preparation for these future subdivisions, these phases of Antelope Crossings have created new connection, a new stub out to be able to feed those properties. So we will be, as part of this, then that project will abandon that water line back here to outside of the subdivision, because then we still have other uses on it going out into the ranch further. But as far as the subdivision, it does not have to be reestablished, relocated, anything associated with the subdivision. There will be the new distribution system that will be built within the streets to serve the properties. And then the other property that's served currently off that water line will be taken care of by the service that's already been installed. I cannot speak to the gas line as far as that. What I can say is that gas will be installed as part of the subdivision as well. So then the developers work with all of the utility companies to reestablish things if they have to be moved. There was a power line that had to be reestablished on previous phases of Westwood, which was also accommodated for and taken care of through the design process of the subdivisions.
So my concern was, from just looking at the plat, it looks like there's houses and lots over the easements for these utilities, but you're saying that those utility lines are going to be abandoned?
Correct.
Okay. And then my other concern under master potable water distribution, it says additional analysis is required to ensure adequate service will be provided to each home. And it begs the question, is there a problem getting water to this area?
No, that is, I'll say, boilerplate language that's in the master plan. And what that comes down to then, when they are designing the subdivision, they create a water report, a sewer report, and then those reports, they model and they prove that the system they are designing as part of the subdivision is capable of supplying the proper fire flows for water, the proper size sewer system to be able to take the flow away. That's what that refers to, that they have to do those reports to verify and or assure that the subdivision can be serviced properly.
Okay, thank you so much for the clarification.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve item 7H.
Second.
Motion and second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, let's move on to the consent ordinance.
Adoption of ordinance number 2021-1749, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing the acceptance of a public drainage easement agreement from Pronghorn Land LLC, and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said acceptance, and adoption of ordinance number 2021-1748, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing the abandonment of right-of-way to Pronghorn Land LLC and to Chamberlain Development Prescott LLC, reserving an easement for existing public utilities across the entire area of abandonment, and reserving easement areas for public drainage, and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said abandonment.
Very well done. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt consent ordinance items 8A and 8B.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? If not, let's please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, let's move to item 9A, please.
Second public hearing and adoption of resolution number 2021-1769 for alternative expenditure limit home rule ballot proposition.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council Mark Woodfellow, Budget and Finance Director. This is the home rule election option for the ballot in August. Again, just a quick brief history. Home rule came about in 1980 and set the limits of governments to the 7980 budget year amount adjusted by population and GDP implicit price deflator adjustment. Again, the formula, we looked at this last time, but this is how the formula lays out. Doing our numbers in that puts our limit for 21-22 at $61 million. As council is aware, that's not nearly what our operating budget is alone. Looking at a projection for the next 4 years, which is the period of time that this home rule option would be in effect, the limit would restrict our expenditures by 45 to 31 million, depending on the year. You see in the far column on the right, which would, of course, require council to make significant reductions in service levels or postponement of capital projects or any purchases of lands or any of that type of thing. The shortcomings we went over in depth last time. Just to remind you a few of them, the whole formula really ignores changes in construction costs. It ignores changes in service levels. We talked about snow removal. I was here in 1980, and our level of snow removal was not near what it is now in a big way. We spend hundreds of thousands on snow removal now, which, of course, we didn't back then. Also, the GDP deflator does not accurately reflect changes in construction cost. It's more of a set box of consumables that it affects price change over the time. So a lot of problems with the formula overall, which is why we have done the home rule. So what home rule does is it gives the council and the public the ability to set the limit each year during the budget process through public hearings. The public can speak to what council is proposing. Council can adjust from there or set the limit each year. So that's done each year. It's not permanent. It's for a 4-year period. Again, here are the years that I have brought this forward. This will be my 9th home rule election with the city. So
starting when you were 10, right?
Yeah. I can't wait for my 10th because then there's like a cake, I think. Home rule doesn't affect tax at all. Of course, our sales tax has to have a vote of the people by our charter. Property tax, it doesn't affect property tax because property tax is limited by state law and state constitution. Of course, so we talked about this, not passed, it will require cuts. There are a bunch of frequently asked questions that are part of our publicity pamphlet, which was part of your packet and will go out to the public as part of this. That was just a few of the questions from that pamphlet. Here's the timelines. This is, of course, the last public hearing as soon as I get done talking so the public can talk. And then after this, council will consider a resolution to place this on the ballot. And then there's lots of things we'll be doing from now to then to get it ready for the ballot. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions, comments from the council? Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 2021-1769.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, let's move on to
Thank
item
you.
9B, please. Thank you, Mark.
Approval of city contract number 2021-145, accepting an Arizona Department of Transportation grant for the Runway 3L21R lighting and signage project at Prescott Regional Airport.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So this is another one where persistence pays off. In 2015, we actually completed design on a new lighting and signage package for our parallel runway to our main commercial service runway. This is super important for our flight training schools, which incidentally on Monday hit 1,500 operations in one day, which would translate to over 500,000 operations annually if that were to continue. So it's a very, very important parallel runway that we need to keep up. We've been asking ADOT for help on this for 6 years, and lo and behold, in the 6th year, we got the call, and they said we are ready to move forward on the project. At this time, the funding is at about 61% state and 39% local share. We do have good hopes that it will actually increase to a full 90% because with the most recent passage of the Coronavirus Act, that's taking federal funding up to 100%, and it allows additional funding for the state. So we expect that eventually our share will be only $95,000. At this time, we're coming to you for an approval of a state grant for the lighting project for $578,000 roughly, and the city's share at this time is $371,289. The money for this actually came out of the second round of CARES Act. It's going to be a reallocation of our operating funds that are paid down by CARES so we can increase our capital share. So it's actually a win-win for everybody. It'll be great to have standardization of the signs and lighting throughout the entire airport environment. It'll be easier to see, and now our new boutique airlines may actually be using this runway as well, because it is sufficient length for them to be able to operate the Pilatus PC-12.
Very good. Well, thank you, Robin. Any questions, comments from the council?
Yeah, Mayor.
Councilman Good?
Well, thank you, Dr. Sabata. I know the persistence working with both federal and state agencies certainly is paying off, even though sometimes it takes a little while. So I think here is another example of some of this CARES Act funding that truly is going to improve public safety. It'll improve safety for not only passengers and staff, but even our new boutique airlines operators and their staff as well. So when you're dealing with the government, you really need a lot of persistence. So I applaud you for that, and especially with the possibility that we'll get close to 100% funding. It just shows that when you prepare yourself for these opportunities, sometimes things work out well. So thank you again. We're so proud of the capacity and the improvement of airport operations. And even though 1,500 operations in a single day is certainly laudable, having, I think, the commercial capacity improvement, even though some citizens are a little concerned about that, those are the much less impactful airplanes and capacities, both even the Pilates that the boutique uses, and certainly with the jet service that we get from United Express, increases our capacity without the impact, both noise and movement of vehicles to and from the terminal. So I just wanted to thank you for your persistence, and again, this is good news. Thank you.
This brings our 3-year grant total, federal and state grants, to $26,690,000 received. So
That's awesome.
That's good to get that back in the local use here. Anything else from the council? Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2021-145.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item 9C, please.
Approval of city contract number 2021-143 with Prescott Downtown Partnership for Downtown Management.
Bringing a presentation up here, Mr. Mayor.
You need help?
There we go. Bring it up here. Hey, look at that. Mr. Mayor and Council, John Heine, Community Outreach Manager.
Oh, John, I'm sorry. I've got to share it in
Oh, right. Go down.
so that Zoom participants can see.
So let me bring it back down then. I think I'm going to have to minimize it and start screen share.
And do screen one. Or I'm sorry, screen two. Screen two. Screen two. There you go. And then share. Click the blue share. Nope. Click screen two.
Yeah.
And then click the
All
blue
right.
share. To your right.
There we go.
And then you'll need to drag the presentation up to
Yep.
that screen.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
There we go. We got it. We're getting there. Mayor and Council, John Heine, Community Outreach Manager. I have before you an approval for contract 2021-143 between the City of Prescott and the Prescott Downtown Partnership for support of the summer concert series on the Courthouse Plaza and management of events and activities in the downtown area. I'm going to be brief because MJ Smith is here with Prescott Downtown Partnership and has a full presentation for you, but just want to give you a few highlights. Earlier this year, the current contract between the city and PDP was about to expire, and the Downtown Partnership learned that the expenses for the summer concert series were likely going to increase dramatically. And for that reason, we delayed an amendment and went forward with the full contract. The previous contract was in the amount of $45,000. The new contract, we're looking for $65,000. Because of that increase, and because these funds come from the bed tax, we did bring this to the Tourism Advisory Committee. MJ presented to the committee earlier this month, and for the most part, TAC was very supportive of the Downtown Concert Series. They unanimously voted to recommend to you approval of this contract for 1 year. The hope was from the TAC that perhaps PDP could find some alternative funding sources in the coming year, but they wanted to make sure that funding was in place for this year's concert series. So with that, I will leave the presentation for MJ. Actually, I'm going to advance the slides for you, and you can present right there.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk with you today. So just a little bit of background, if we can advance to the next slide, John. In 2006, the city of Prescott and the Prescott Downtown Partnership entered a management agreement for the amount of $17,340. That agreement was to help fund a downtown manager position that would administer the Prescott Main Street program, organize downtown special events, encourage and facilitate the physical development of downtown, and act as a downtown liaison between PDP and the city. And again, that contract was in the amount of $17,340. And it was paid for through transient vendor fees collected at events that were held at Yavapai County Courthouse Plaza. We no longer collect the transient business license fee, so that funding mechanism has changed over the years. In the 2015 to 2017 contract, the amount of our contract was for $20,000. And again, it helped fund the downtown manager position to follow through with those objectives set up originally. Next slide, please, John. In 2016, there were some changes made to the contract based on the city taking a look at some of the programs and needing to meet the public safety retirement system contributions. One of the programs on the chopping block at that time was the summer concert series. So the city of Prescott approached PDP and asked if we would be interested in taking this on to ensure that the program continued. So in March of 2016, the City of Prescott amended that management agreement to include organize, manage, promote, and put on the Downtown Summer Concert Series. And at that time, the contract was increased by $24,000 to $44,000 a year to help fund the Summer Concert Series. And in 2016, the total costs for running the series were $28,400. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about the Summer Concert Series. So it was started in 2007. Concerts are held June through August on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Initially, bands were not paid. They played for free. At one point, it was increased to $200, and now we pay those bands $300 per performance. The series costs in 2019 were $45,300, and that was for 28 dates. In 2020, we had 18 dates, and the total cost of the series was $31,500. Next slide, please, John. The 2020 series was different, as was everything that we did in 2020, I think we can safely say. We reduced it to 18 dates. We eliminated the Prescott Sings portion of the Summer Concert Series because of COVID-related issues. We saw 18,600 attendees at those 18 dates, and we saw 30,000 unique views of the live stream on social media. Next slide, please, John. Some of the performers from 2020 included the Goodwin Street Gang, the Cheek Tones, Candace Devine and Drew Hall, Northern Arizona's Big Band. And the thing I want you to notice on these is that this is all local entertainment. These are our homegrown bands who really look forward to this series each year. Next slide, please. So in the age of COVID, we had to take a look at the Summer Concert Series. And at one point, we entertained not holding it at all. You know, and we started planning and having these conversations in early April, which is when I came on board with the Prescott Downtown Partnership. We didn't know what we were going to be looking at through summer, but we were hopeful that we would be able to still offer a lot of these programs that mean so much to the community. So I sat down with the Board of Supervisors and we talked about how can we safely hold these events? How are we going to be responsible to our community, but still offer this service? So we implemented several things. We had continuous restroom monitoring and cleaning, which was paid for by PDP. Because of COVID, the county had closed the restrooms at the courthouse, so we had to have them opened, and we staffed and monitored those. We also had continuous monitoring or replacement of the trash cans. Normally they're just pulled at the end of the night, but we wanted to be sure that we didn't have any trash overflowing those cans. We purchased and placed sanitizer and hand wash stations throughout the venue. We purchased and placed Yavapai Community Health Services signage reminding people to stay home if they weren't feeling well, to practice social distancing, to wash their hands, all of the things that we've all heard a million times at this point. We also did pre-event announcements every night, reminding people to practice social distancing. And we put the onus on them. If they wanted to continue to see the series running, then they needed to act responsibly while they were there and social distance from other social groups. If they came together, it's perfectly fine that they weren't 6 feet apart, but if they did not arrive together, they needed that 6 feet of social distance. We also added the live streaming option. So those people who maybe are at a higher risk for COVID complications or, felt that they needed to take more care were able to watch the series from home and not feel completely isolated. Next slide, please. The live streaming was available to view through Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. At our first concert on June 4th, we saw 674 unique views, and we had 1 static camera. In the final concert in September, we were averaging 3,000 plus views per show. We had 2 static cameras and an operated camera. Now, Prescott Pro Sound took this on their own. We knew we wanted to do the live stream, but they offered to sponsor that for us, and it cost us no dollars in order to do the live stream in 2020. Over the total of the series, we had 29,976 people tune in for 20 plus minutes during the Summer Concert Series. Next slide, please. These are just a few of the comments that we received following this event. As I mentioned, I came on board on April 5th. That was my first day with the Prescott Downtown Partnership. And I can tell you that over the course of that next 6 weeks or so, our initial objectives changed drastically. What I thought I was taking on when I accepted this position became something very different. So we focused on how do we do these things safely? How do we be responsible stewards within our community? But how do we still do them? And each night, I was at each of these Summer Concert Series events, and every night I had comments from the community about how important this particular event was to them. Something that they've done, as long as they've lived here. They can remember coming when they were children, or, it became such an important piece of their identity and their relationship with Prescott as a whole. So I'd like to express my gratitude for the wonderful summer concert series I've been enjoying since I moved here in April. It's one of my favorite things to do in this wonderful city. Please advise if I need to contact someone else. Next slide, please. I won't read them all to you, but there is one on the next slide that I thought was important. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't tell you how much the summer concert that's at the courthouse mean to me. My husband and I attended together for years and years. After he passed in 2017, the music at the courthouse helped me feel close to him again. This year, the concerts are the only time I feel connected to my community. This has been the most isolated year of my life. Thank you for giving an old lady something to look forward to each week. Now, over the course of this series, whether I was out there and they were talking to me individually personally, or whether they were emailing the city council, whether they were emailing board of supervisors, people were very vocal in their support of this and very, very grateful that we were able to continue it in 2020. Next slide, please. So looking into Summer Concert Series of 2021, right now we are planning 28 dates, which includes Tuesday Jazz Nights, Thursday Prescott Sings. On the third Thursdays, we have the Northern Arizona Big Band. Friday night, we have rock concerts, and we're planning a Juneteenth Jazz Festival. The concerts will run June 1 through August 27th. Now, why are we looking at such an increase in costs for this year? Ted Leonard, who was the owner of Prescott Pro Sound, sold it in 2020 to Preston Doyle. Mr. Leonard had not raised his rates in 18 years. Mr. Doyle honored those rates. As a new business owner, he didn't feel that he could come in year one and raise rates right out of the box. He also didn't realize that 90% of his business was going to be canceled in the first year of ownership of that company. The company is now for sale again. Mr. Doyle is selling to a new company, and the new owner can simply not offer us the services at 2003's prices. So we went out immediately and got bids. We got more than 7 bids from companies both local and out of the area. And our bids ranged from $1,800 to $3,500 per show. Our lowest bid was from the Upstage Group, which is the purchaser and the new buyer of Prescott Pro Sound. But just looking at these costs, our cost to do the event will increase by $27,500 for production alone. And that doesn't include any of the other expenses that have gone up over the years. So again, we're looking at 28 dates. But PDP, to keep our costs in line, has eliminated 2 contract positions for a total of $10,000 worth of savings. Before I came on board with PDP, they contracted out management of the summer concert series. They had a summer concert series manager who was at each of the shows. I have a little girl. She's 6. She loves these, so it's not a burden for me to be there on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday nights when we have concerts. If you've been out there when we've had them, you've seen her running amok. She thinks they're awesome. So let's just take a look at the P&L, the projected P&L for 2021. Our total costs for the series at this time for 28 dates is $67,832.40, and that includes having to do the restrooms, trash cleanup, all of our music licensing fees, banners, rack cards, DJ. But when you take a look at that, you'll see the large number is the sound. That really is where majority of these costs come in. One reason that the artists love to perform it is they know that they're going to get a professional production. And it's one of the reasons that people travel for this and that the community comes out en masse to see it. So under this, even with the dollars that the city presents to us at this time, which is $24,000, PDP is looking at a loss of $35,832.40, which is just too much for our nonprofit. We can't take that on. So we are here today asking you to please increase our contract by $20,000 to allow us to continue to present this to the community. This time I open it up for questions.
MJ, thank you for being here, and thank you for your work. Thank you for your hard work, your persistence, your ability to continue to move forward with these events during a very important time to have a safe social event. So your innovation and your persistence to try to make these happen is commendable. And these events are really what make Prescott special. You know, when people drive into town from out of town and they see a concert going on the plaza, they kind of scratch their head and go, wow, this really, I feel like I'm in Mayberry. You know, but they really appreciate these events. And for those folks that, you know, couldn't get out and needed a safe event, this was a great opportunity outside. And so I appreciate all of your work on this. Sorry that you came in at such a weird time. Better days ahead. Let's hope 2021 is much better. So great presentation. Thank you so much. We'll take questions, comments from the council. Councilman Tenney.
Yes, Mayor. I was able to be a part of the meeting. I guess it was last couple of weeks ago, wasn't it now, where we talked about this, the Tourist Advisory Committee. And once again, it was unanimous as we heard the presentation from MJ about the fact that the city has essentially been getting this at a terrific bargain for the last 18 years in a row. So in one sense, you could think of, again, we're looking at a relatively substantial increase for this next year if we continue with this contract, vote to approve it. But that's essentially paid for itself over the last 18 years that we've been getting a terrific bargain. These concerts, this concert series is a huge part of the culture of Prescott, as you've talked about. I've got a piece of documentation here that was put into my hands earlier today about the different designations that Prescott enjoys. One of them is the Courthouse Plaza being number 3 from the American Planning Association, the top 10 public spaces. And it's events like this. It's not just the grass and the fact that you can walk around and it's beautiful. We've got courthouse lighting and other terrific things that the Prescott Downtown Partnership helps us with. But it's events like this that really put us on the map as far as that's concerned. So this is something I'd be very much in favor of.
Very good. Councilmember Rusey.
Thank you. My parents retired here in the 70s, and they bought a house on Park Avenue. And one of the things they loved to do was walk down for the square dancing events down on the plaza. And this is wonderful that we can continue this and support it. And it's one of the things that just makes Prescott so unique and charming. Thank you.
Let's see, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, MJ. I know PDP has had a trying year this year and is really trying to move forward with our mission and doing great things for our downtown area. So I'm happy to support this. I think this is such an important part of Prescott summer, and I love driving downtown with my windows rolled down and you can hear the music and see everyone dancing, and it's really a part of our hometown. So I think this is such a worthy cause.
Councilman Good.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I echo most of those concerns and those comments and the accolades for having this particular series. It's something that very impressed me when I first came here a dozen or more years ago, and it was always something that I felt that everybody who attended or saw our great historic downtown core always felt it was such a terrific, unique kind of iconic opportunity to not only have the unique parts of Prescott, but as far as I recall, I don't even think Mayberry had these. So we're ahead of that game. And when you kind of rely on a provider that never bothered to increase their costs over a period of 18 years, that's quite remarkable. So we just have to kind of look at the fact that we enjoyed that low cost, and it's reasonable, I think, to expect that a current provider has to be able to deal with the increased costs of labor and delivering that service. So even though it's a little bit painful, we're enjoying our bed tax and improving our visits now from people from the valley and other places. So it's something that I would certainly support and would like that to continue for a long time. Thanks.
Any other comments from the council? Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2021-143.
Second.
Motion and second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you, John. Thank you, MJ. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to item 9D, please.
Discussion and possible action regarding the City of Prescott temporary parklet program.
I want to make a couple comments here before John gets started. Thank you, John, for allowing me. we've had the parklet program in place for maybe longer than we expected. I don't know. I know that staff had worked diligently to put something together to help businesses during the pandemic when the emergency orders were coming down from the governor for reduced capacities and those kinds of things. And we were looking for ways to expand the ability of these restaurants and bars to have more people in safe spaces, if you will, outside in this case. And so I commend the staff for your hard work and effort and ingenuity and innovation early on to try to figure out a solution for bars and restaurants to survive the pandemic. I appreciate what you guys have done. As we see numbers go down, I felt like it's important for the council to take another look at these at this point. We're seeing positive cases. I think today was 11 from what I saw, and we've been seeing them plus or minus 10 daily, which is a really good thing. I'm knocking on wood here right now to hope that these numbers continue to drop in our community, and so I'm grateful for that. But I also thought it would be appropriate for us to consider whether we might look at a deadline or an ending date to this temporary parklet program. The governor came out with a change where he increased capacity to 100% in restaurants, but then he still stipulated that you had to stay 6 feet apart. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and I know it was some consternation for the restaurants to see that and wonder, does this help or not? So anyway, with that said, I just thought we ought to take another look at when we might twilight this temporary program.
Great.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You basically set the table for the discussion, but we do have in your packet a full report. Gwen Roach did a great job kind of looking back on all of the executive orders over the last year, so you can take a look at that for yourselves. But as the mayor suggested, we have before you a recommended action, really a choice, an option to move to select to approve a date for sunset of the current temporary program, or you could also move to continue the temporary program indefinitely. As the mayor alluded to also, the governor's most recent executive order, which took away the percentage occupancy restriction, we've talked to a lot of restaurants and establishments, and it effectively had little change on their ability for occupancy because of the social distancing and other measures. So they're basically still under the same type of restriction.
Yeah, very good, John. And then based on our earlier conversations around this, my assumption would be that if we set a date to terminate this program, maybe at the end of this month or whatever that might be, that then those businesses that have those parklets would have 30 days to take those down subsequent to that date.
Policy, that's correct.
Okay. Anything else, John?
That's all I have.
All right. Questions, comments from the council? Councilmember Rusing?
Thank you. I'd just like to echo a few of your comments. Number one, I'd like to thank the city staff for moving ahead with the parklet idea. We're all learning how to deal with COVID, and we were in uncharted waters. And the purpose was to help with our downtown restaurants and help them stay in business and keep people employed. And it was also to help provide a safer environment when dining by providing more outdoor spaces. And since I work at the I volunteer at the vaccination clinic at Sears, I have been told that they expect to continue vaccinating until approximately the summer, June 1st, and they should have pretty much everyone vaccinated by then. So since we have to give a 30-day notice anyway, I'd like to move that we extend the program 60 days and terminate it by June 1st. Thank you.
So just to clarify, you're making a motion to extend it through April and May and then terminate the end of May, and then they'd have June to take it down? Is that?
No, have them take it down by June 1st.
Okay. So you'd end the program by the end of April. Is that right?
Yeah, with 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Prior, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, just end of April, but then they'd have the 30 days to take it down, and so they'd be done.
They'd have the month of May to take them down.
Thank you.
Yep. Very good. Let's see. Councilman Tenney.
So I'd echo some of the things that Councilwoman Roosing said in terms of the feeling behind wanting to help our downtown businesses, and this may well have been a helpful thing to them. As I was driving to our meetings earlier today, Tuesday afternoon, in Prescott, Arizona, with snow falling down and whatnot, up Cortez Street, so not a time I'd think that we'd be as crowded as other times. Past one of the parklets, no one sitting there. It's the same that I've seen for the last several times that I've passed it, and literally every single parking space on Cortez taken, except for the 4 that were taken up by the parklet. So I think it's the usefulness of the program has come and probably gone, and my feeling would be if there were a motion made to terminate it as relatively early as possible, I'd be more in favor of that.
Okay. Councilman Good?
Thank you, Mayor. I think even though the intentions here were laudable, the benefits to a few establishments certainly didn't counteract the detrimental impact to many of our non-restaurant businesses that were either neighbors or on the same streets. So I've had numerous conversations with some of the antique dealers and even other businesses right there on Whiskey Row, and their businesses have definitely been hurt. Taking away those valuable parking spaces in front or near their businesses, they've had to deal with for many, many months now. And as Councilman Tenney said, I'm down there almost every day looking at the parklets, and very rarely do I see anyone occupying them. So I think it's they've been able to receive that benefit over 7 or 8 months now, and I think it's more than enough time for the neighboring businesses to be able to get back into business and help them increase their revenue that we certainly appreciate here in the city. And those parking spaces are very valuable for their businesses. So I think we can probably terminate these parkless programs. I would suggest maybe give the 30-day notice effective April 1st, and then have them removed by the end of April. That should be sufficient time for those restaurants that did make that investment in putting these together, sufficient time to plan on having them removed, and then get our non-restaurant businesses back in business, especially now that the weather's getting better, excluding today. But I think we can expect to see more tourists coming up here and benefiting all of our businesses in the downtown area. So that would be my proposal, is to give them the notice effective the 1st, and 30 days would be April 30th.
Is that a motion, Councilman Good? We have a motion but no second.
Right. So I think my suggestion is to take council comment, take public comment, and then call for a motion at that point.
So right now we have a motion but didn't get a second. We have a good suggestion in my view, and we will keep going with good suggestion. Councilman Sischke.
You know, the unfortunate thing about this is we had it asked backwards. We allowed the parklets to continue through the winter when nobody wanted to sit in the parklets. And, you know, I totally agree with the comments that have been made. I think that it's time to sunset the parklets. I also think that if in fact something like the parklets continue at some point and in some form, that you know, this is on the taxpayer's dime. They're out in the parking spaces. So if there's some amenable situation where the folks in the restaurants can pay for increased space and they want to go out into the street, then I think that that's something that we might want to look at. But, you know, I would agree that particularly with Councilman Good, as surprising as that may sound, that by the end of May, they probably should be down.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, John, for all the information. I think one thing that I've found disappointing is the division that's happened between some of our downtown businesses and their neighbors. That definitely wasn't an intention of this program, and it's unfortunate that that's happened. I prefer eating outside. I like it. I think it's a lot of fun, especially, with our beautiful Prescott weather most of the year. But I think it's time that we sunset this program and maybe look at something kind of like what Mr. Shiska said, maybe something more permanent that looks different or whatever that may be. But at this time, I think we're ready for this program to sunset. I have a question for you, John, about the to-go parking spots that we've reserved. Are we still intending to continue with that, or is that sunsetting as well?
I'll start, and if you want to fill in. So those are still continuing, but we have notified the businesses that we're going to go down to one. We had two, but again, as things start to open up, we went down to one, and I believe the plan is to go down to 0 after, I think, the month of April, if that's correct. Is that Ann? April 15th? April 15th. So we've already had the conversation with the businesses.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Rusi.
So it looks like we all agree that we need to sunset this. It's just we're within 30 days. There's some thoughts end of April, and then some thoughts end of May. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Public comment?
I have two that I received through the portal that I'll go ahead and read, Mayor. And then Josh, if you wanted to, I can take public comments. If you have a card, please bring it up to me. All right. The first comment is from the Palace. Our preference, and all other Whiskey Row merchants on the petition signed last year, is that the parklet be taken down. We totally understand that the initial intent of the city in approving it was well-intentioned to help other businesses in uncharted waters. We do not believe that this has been the case. If the council decides to continue the temporary permit for the parklet on the row, we would suggest that it be required to be open during all regular business hours, barring extreme inclement weather. It has been closed completely for almost 3 months and was only open for very limited hours before that. If the business cannot afford to open it, or sales do not justify the minimal staffing it requires, then we contend that any appreciable financial benefit to that business does not exist, yet the impact on the other merchants is ongoing. One business taking up that many parking spaces all day, every day for a space that is never or hardly ever used is, we are sure, not what was intended. As has been brought up before, if we remember correctly, the retail value to merchants is about $35,000 per parking space per year. Forgive us if this number is not exact. That is a huge loss in sales for all other businesses and is, we believe, benefiting no one. We appreciate your time in reading this and look forward to your comments. And the next comment is from Sherry Rabellino. We would like to kindly request removing the Jersey Lily parklet on Whiskey Row as soon as possible. We do not support this parklet remaining or reappearing as a seasonal business that only benefits one merchant. We as fellow business merchants on Whiskey Row were happy to support our fellow business owners last year when the pandemic affected us all. Now that the emergency and panic is over and most businesses have returned to normal, there is no need to award one single business a benefit that affects us all in a negative way. Article 9, Section 7 of the Arizona Constitution, referred to as the gift clause, provides, quote, neither the state nor any county, city, town, municipality, or other subdivision of the state shall ever give or loan its credit in the aid of or make any donation or grant by subsidy or otherwise to any individual, association, or corporation. The city has elected to gift public property to one individual. It is not fair to the businesses it blocks and it sits in front of. Please keep in mind, this parklet, even in the early days, was closed more than it was open. It currently has not been used at all for at least 3 months. Yet every day and night it takes up valuable parking, blocks several business storefronts, and is simply not necessary. It benefits only one and at the detriment to others. And now I'll call up our members of the public that are present. Josh McCraver.
Thank you, staff, for putting this policy into place at the beginning. We really appreciate all your efforts in making this happen for us. And the council afterwards allowing us to use that, as we went on. I'd like to address the closure because obviously that's the elephant in the room. As Steve Shishka said, we kind of did this backwards. You guys granted us to use it through the winter months. Let's be realistic. That's not when we need it. It's the summer months that we need it. Yes, we are a bar. We do not operate the same hours as a restaurant, nor does it make financial sense to operate the same hours as a restaurant. Bars are completely different, and the way we produce the income. So I appreciate everybody's concern, but unless you're able to run a bar, that's just not how it works. So the limited hours, that's what works for us. It has been financially assistive to get us through all of this, and would be really helpful to get it through the summer months. Another huge thing that would have helped us would be allowing music on the parklet. Not allowing music in an entertainment district in your downtown lively atmosphere is absolutely crazy. The day we did have music out there, it went really well. It would have been very beneficial to continue that. I would also address, the detriment to other businesses around me, specifically the jewelry store below me. Flat out said their books have not been affected by this when asked. The Palace has broken financial records reported to me by the owners, and other bar owners on Whiskey Row all had the same opportunity as I did to apply for the program and take advantage of it. With my neighbor, Matt, I offered to work with him and provide him space and have his built by my contractors at the same time. You can only help people so much. So we all really had the opportunity to, take advantage of the program. In my opinion, we're jumping the gun at getting rid of this. We don't know if there's going to be another spike. As we've stated already, the 100% capacity restriction being lifted is a joke. There's still 6-foot regulations being enforced on us. We are far from back to normal, and there's light, but we don't know what's going to come after the St. Patty's Day crowd that gathered. We don't know what's going to come once people start getting out and gathering in the summer months, which is not far. So I think we're jumping the gun and taking away an opportunity that exists for us. Also, in regards to removing it, if it is something that we decide needs to be removed sooner than later, that's fine. But the reality of it is contractors are extremely busy right now. I've already spoken with my contractor. To have that thing gone by the end of April is far from realistic for me. Maybe others are available and I would try, but that's going to be a challenge. So I'd like to thank you all again for all of your assistance at the beginning and through this, but I'd ask that we sunset it closer to October or September, or at least allow it until, as originally stated in the last meeting, that once 100% of COVID restrictions have been lifted on us, at that time, we would get a 30-day notice.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
David Caldwell.
Hello, thanks for letting me talk today. I've been here, I think, 4 other times speaking out against these parklets. I own 3 businesses on Cortez Street, all retail facilities. And I just was you were talking today about traveling around. Nobody was in those parklets. especially the one on Cortez Street. Uber driver jokingly refers to it as a chicken coop. There's nobody in those things ever. Maybe on a nice, sunny, super sunny day on Saturday, but they're constantly taking up 4 spots. And it's a very strong bone of contention for me. All our businesses on those streets are struggling. There's a number of people are changing hands. I go down by the one that's by Rose's. There's 3 or 2 vacant retail facilities down there now. Parking's a very big deal, as I said every time. I'm not going to go on and on about this, but I've had people constantly come in. Oh, the parking's so hard to find here. Parking's so hard. So they talked about shuttle services to other facilities. That never happened. There's nothing to help that at all. So that's where I stand. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Jackson.
Hi, my name's Linda, and I'm the manager over at Kickapoo, the shop that's directly below Jersey Lily. And I'm not quite sure where Josh got his information that it hasn't hurt our income, but I help the owner. I manage the business and I pay the bills for him, and we're lucky to be open. I'm going to say that. And also, too, I have to agree with several councilmen that made the remark that they're not open to help support whatever, their income. They're not open enough. I kept track of the hours and the days that they were open, and I don't see how it helps their income at all. Granted, it was there over the winter, but there was nobody in there, and it's just like you said, it was backwards. And but our best business days are in the summer too, and we get noticed by the street. My biggest thing is, how can you put a parklet on a state highway? Who can approve a parklet on a state highway? And that's what it is. It's a state highway. So I just don't see the sense in that. And now it's become like a trash can, just about, underneath it. The mailman said there was he saw rats going across the sidewalk. So, it's going to be a job just to clean up underneath it, let alone put it away. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Let me just check the Zoom real quick. I don't have anything else, Mayor.
Nothing on Zoom. Okay. Thank you. Councilman Blair?
Yeah, I'll just say I've never been a fan of these things. I don't think the individual property owners tried hard enough to work around it. I've always said Rose's has got a parking lot back behind that they can utilize right next to the creek. The Ravens got one right next door to them that's not used by Foothills Bank. Jersey Lily and the city of Prescott and all the people on Whiskey Row haven't worked hard enough to use that alley we spent all that money on to be able to have that function in the afternoon. The delivery trucks working until noon, and then from noon on until midnight, they could utilize that for their own business purposes. And I fail to understand how the fire department or anybody else can allow those heaters out there on those decks. And there's one out there that's got 8 propane tanks sitting on it. Who's liable for these things in the first place? We've never had that question answered. I would agree with Phil. End of April, 30 days, done by the 1st of May.
Is that a motion?
Yep. I'm going to go with Phil made the motion.
All right. So we have a motion to notice at the end of March or by April 1, and then have 30 days there in the month of April to have them taken down.
Second.
So we have a motion and second. Any other discussion?
So just so the record's clear, was it Councilmember Good that made the motion? Because I heard Blair second his own motion.
I would second Councilman Good's.
Sorry.
Because we
second
said
it.
earlier during council discussion that Councilmember Roosing and Councilman Good's comments were simply suggestions and not motions. So I need an actual motion for notification to businesses effective April 1st that the temporary parklet program is sunsetting, and they have to be removed within 30 days of that April 1st notice.
That's my motion.
Second.
So Councilman Good made that motion, and thank you for officiating. And we have a second from Councilman Barrett.
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Here? I really do think that there is an opportunity here for staff and our management to get together with some of these folks and discuss alternatives. And I would like to see that go forward and not just have this thing cut off at the knees. I agree with the motion and the second, but I also think that we need to work to see if we can make this a better situation.
Amen.
Can I make one last?
Yeah,
point?
absolutely.
You know, I applaud Josh, and your efforts up there, especially when you were able to convince the Department of Health that ice is a food. So that helped out, I think, some of your efforts. And I always applaud a good entrepreneur that can find a loophole in the government policies. But since your concern is your contractor being able to pull off your parklet in a reasonable amount of time and at a reasonable cost, maybe you can get together with Raven and Roses and maybe collectively get your contractors to be able to take it out in a reasonable cost in a rapid manner. So just a suggestion there.
Very good. Any other comments from the council? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Do we have a motion?
Already got
We
it.
have a motion and a second.
I mean,
We can vote though.
we have a motion and a second. We could vote now. Sorry.
Passes 6-1.
All right. Let's move on to item 9E, please.
Legislative update.
Oops. I just messed up Zoom, didn't I? How are we getting that back? Sorry about that. There you go.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Tyler Goodman from the City Manager's Office. And are we sharing, Sarah? Are we?
I don't see you sharing. It looks like the screen share stopped.
Let me do there.
2.
Screen 2. Okay, there we go.
And then move the document up.
And documents there. Okay. Okay. For our legislative update, this is the last week for bills to be heard in committees of the opposite chamber. So there's a lot of committee action, really lengthy agendas in those committee meetings this week. Except for the Appropriations Committee, you'll see some bills funnel through that committee as the weeks go on. But budget discussions at the state level are underway. We don't know a whole lot. We're just being told that they've started, and we've been told that they've started very late. So it could be a very late session depending on how quickly they get those items resolved amongst the members. There is talk since really the beginning of the session. The governor came out with his executive budget and recommendations, which showed tax cuts to the tune of, I think, $600 million. So there is talk of a large tax cut that's going to be happening potentially along with that budget, but the details haven't been shared and we just don't know a lot yet. So we're trying to keep the feelers out there, but that's the word. I'll keep this update short. Not a lot, actually. A lot has changed in good ways. If you notice that this is shorter than other updates I've given, it's because a lot of bad bills have been killed, you could say, for the session, so they're off the radar, which is always nice. But there's a couple that have come up in recent past that are concerning. House Bill 2551, the misconduct involving weapons in public places. This bill would allow concealed carry permit holders into government buildings unless the entity, like the city, installs metal detectors and security guards at all entry points of the building. There was a similar bill about 7 years ago that was vetoed by Governor Brewer because of cost concerns. There's a fiscal note on the bill that it's estimated to be approximately $130,000 to implement that program, and then obviously the cost of paying for security ongoing above and beyond that. It just passed the House last week. 3129, and it's passed its Senate committee. It's awaiting the Rules Committee. This one was introduced earlier on in the session, but didn't seem to have traction, didn't seem to have support, and all of a sudden it passes out of the House by a very slim party line vote. Let me see if I can scroll.
Tyler, what's the rationale for that bill?
I can only guess it's support for concealed carry and the ability to defend yourself. It's from Representative Kavanaugh, very conservative legislator, and that seems to be the background on it.
And remember, I don't think I need to. Well, I'll just remind the council and the public, this is $130,000 per building. So this would apply, for instance, to our airport outside of the secure area. So if this bill passes, we'd either have to put in sort of 2 metal detectors, one at the door and then one at the TSA. It would apply to, our multiple buildings we have. And I think what I heard with the rationale, and it's sort of a trope, is good guys with guns can stop bad guys with guns. Cliche, That's kind of the rationale, I think. At least one of the stated ones that I had heard or read somewhere.
Tyler, help me out if I'm understanding correctly. Not just $130,000 per building, but $130,000 per entry, plus then the ongoing costs of security.
Correct.
So this is a massive hit
Yes.
to municipalities. If
Unless the council decided to allow concealed permit carriers to carry weapons in the building. Currently, we don't. So we would have to change that unless we wanted to foot the bill.
The one exception to this, though, would be for places that have a Title IV liquor license. So one of the things we could do is liquor up every city facility. Just kidding.
Speaking of loopholes, I guess, right? Jumping down, most of the bills on here, please stop me if you have questions on the other ones. I won't go through all of them. We've reviewed them many times before. The next one that is of concern that really did just come up out of nowhere because it was a strike everything amendment, which means they take an old bill, take all the language out, and replace every bit of it with new language. And it stays in its current position, you could say, in the process. So these are very problematic for a lot of reasons. Senate Bill 1146 is the one we're looking at, the motor vehicle dealers TPT exemption. It would allow anyone to not pay Arizona TPT if they claim the vehicle will be used out of this state or registered out of this state. So currently, in order to receive the exemption, a non-resident must receive delivery of the vehicle out of the state. There's also a 90-day window, I believe, if you purchase to register it in another state. So they can take advantage of the exemption. The proposal no longer requires a vehicle to be delivered outside of the state and consequently would result in lost revenue. So kind of the catch here, though, is if a person is buying a vehicle and they're taking it back home out of state, typically that state that they're taking it home to will charge a use tax if nothing was paid in the state of Arizona. So we're really not doing anybody any favors except losing our own ability to generate that revenue from those sales of vehicles. This is a bigger concern in the border cities, Lake Havasu, Yuma especially, but I'm sure it would affect us as well, and state shared revenues, it would affect those. So we would feel it on a couple of different ways.
Is this
go ahead.
Is this in response to, I may be mistaken, but I thought there was some movement in California to not allow the sale of gas vehicles by 2026 or something like that? Is that to encourage people to come here to buy cars?
I've seen that as well. I haven't heard that that's directly connected to this. I have heard that the dealers and those who represent the dealers statewide are in favor of this, which makes sense because it would up their sales, and they don't really care if sales tax revenue is passed on or not. So there is support from them, but again, this came out of nowhere. I didn't put on there the update of where it is, but it did just pass out of.
It was sent to a conference committee.
Is that what it was? Thank you.
So Senator Fan, I got this from Nick Ponder yesterday. She, during a call, she asked for the sponsor of 1146 not to concur to the amendment, forcing a conference committee.
Okay.
So Tyler brought this to me on Monday, and then subsequently I messaged Senator Fan a few times. It felt like she didn't fully understand the gravity of what this legislation was at that time. We also talked to Tom Belshey and Nick at the League about it, and then Nick has now reached out to Senator Fan, and so it looks like she's aware that this, I kept telling her this is a loophole for people to, skip out on TPT. So hopefully she's onto it at this point.
And I should add to that, Mayor, that the League of Cities, we had a call amongst all the intergovs on Friday. They made specific assignments for these two bills I've just talked about to really target legislators and inform them and share with them the feedback that this could really, really hurt cities and towns especially. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions on this or any other items from the legislature.
Questions, comments for Tyler?
Is it over? Can we just not have a legislative session anymore?
Probably only about halfway.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it. There's nothing else on the agenda here, so I will close us out with a quote. This is from Alexander the Great. I'm not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I'm afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. This meeting is adjourned.